Hi, I got the waterfall going here to try to make a soothing background. My house is noisy right now because it's full of fans. Also, my grandson and great-grandson are there, and they're having regular life. Welcome to the Monday morning devotional. How is your Monday going? Okay, James says this. Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking in anything. Wait a minute. The trials are good? Oh, I can't find my place in my other passage here. It's here we go. 2 Peter. Let's try 1 Peter. I read a devotional by my brother-in-law on Facebook the other day, and he used the same verse that I was getting ready to put down for this, and his approach was very different than mine, so I'm not going to duplicate it, but I do want to read the same passage, and read along with me. It's 1 Peter, first chapter, verse 7 and following. These have come, now it's talking about trials, talking about the testing of your faith and trials. And he says, these have come so that your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes, even though refined by fire, may be proved genuine and may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. So he says that these tests and trials prove your faith. Friends, I'm in my 60s now, and I've lived through a few things, some recessions and some protests over wars far away. I have friends who died in Vietnam. I have friends who served in Vietnam, and they killed people, and it stuck with them the rest of their life. They never adapted to the reality of war. And then when they came home, they were not necessarily welcomed. And it was tough, and I've been through these things, and I've lived through these things, but this quarantine and the uncertainty that it seems to be bringing, it's new for me. And there's a word that we used to use more commonly, and it was just stress, and people say, oh, most diseases can be traced back to stress, and I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not a doctor, but I know that I've had plenty of people in my life experience, family, friends, loved ones, who have struggled with stress, and it has led them down the path of despondency and despair and depression. And they battled with these things. Why? Because they couldn't deal with the stress, and they couldn't deal with the pressure. And here are two passages in the Bible that tell us that stress or pressure, or the words that the Bible uses specifically, trials, can have a positive effect and have a positive outcome, and it can literally prove our faith. Now, this should come as no surprise. I want to tell a story. Many years ago, the house that my wife and I first bought, 2 weeks after we got married, it closed and we moved in, and we had a complete renovation. And when we were finally ready for the very final inspection, and the city inspector was going to come and do the final, and we were pretty excited about that. We had already extended it twice, maybe 3 times. It was a year or two beyond the original deadline, and so we were pretty excited. Get it all wrapped up, get all the paperwork done, get all the inspection cards all signed off. And I had a gas leak. I had changed the gas plumbing. The house was sitting up on had a walk-in basement, and so it was really easy to get to. So I just took all of the gas pipe out, threw it away, and put all new. And I'm qualified to do that, in case you're curious. And so I hooked it all up, and the inspector required that we put a little pressure gauge on the end of it and then cap off the places where it would normally connect to the various gas appliances in the house. I had done that countless times on people's hot tubs and their swimming pool heaters and so forth. So I had the equipment. So I put the pressure gauge on, and the pressure gauge has a little nipple on it. It's just like the tires on your car. And so I got a bicycle pump and I pumped air into the pipe. And I brought the pressure gauge up to about 15 PSI. And I was all set, except I noticed when I came back and checked on it about 10 minutes later, the pressure gauge was going back down again. There was a leak somewhere. Now, I had just replaced every stick of pipe, every inch, every joint, every elbow, every fitting, and I had put caps on where the appliances normally would connect. Everything should have been perfect. And I went through all those joints, and what you do is you dribble soapy water on them, and if there's a leak there, the air coming out makes the soapy water bubble up, and that's how you find out where the leaks are. And I tried everything that I knew how to do to find that leak, and I couldn't. And I tightened up things, I adjusted things. There were a couple of fittings that didn't look good, so I took them off, threw them away, went out to the hardware store and bought new ones, came back and reinstalled them, put the right type of pipe dope on the threads. I mean, I did everything I needed to do. I'm sorry I'm getting into way too much detail here, but the point is, I couldn't find the leak. And so I called a friend, lived nearby, and he showed up with an air compressor in the truck. And he also had a different pressure gauge. And I said, do you suspect that the pressure gauge is bad? He goes, no, I just don't think it goes up far enough. I didn't understand what he meant. Well, I was about to learn. So we swapped his pressure gauge onto my little test plug, and we put away my little bicycle pump, fired up his air compressor, and we ran the pressure up to about 100 PSI. Now, I had brought it up to 15 PSI. 100 PSI, if you're not familiar with what on earth that means, the water coming out of your garden hose, if you're out there, with your thumb on the end of the garden hose watering, may be around 50, maybe 60 PSI. 60 is good, 50 is not bad. But a lot of houses only have maybe 40. So we were double that plus. We were 100 PSI. And then we walked down into the basement, and I walked over to a joint, and I could literally hear the air hissing out of that. I put a little soapy water on, and I didn't wear glasses back in those days, and it sprayed soapy water right into my eyes. That's how much of a leak there was there. How did I find that leak? I increased the pressure. And you know what? Sometimes God is going to prove himself faithful by increasing the pressure on us. Sometimes he's going to help us prove our faith. More precious than gold, the word says our faith is. He's going to help us prove it by increasing the pressure on us. Am I talking about God deliberately giving us stress and breaking down our health? No. I'm talking about trials and things that come into our life that increase the pressure until it reveals a weakness in us. It's happened to me. I'm definitely not a perfect person. I'm perfectly ordinary. But when the pressure from something like this quarantine is amped up, it begins to show weaknesses. Weaknesses in my faith, perhaps. Weaknesses in my communication with my wife, oh, most definitely. Weaknesses in showing love and concern for my neighbors and friends. I'm sorry to have to admit it. What's it showing in you? What's it showing in all of us, friends? Trust God. He's going to bring us through. But be thankful that he loves you enough that when he has to increase the pressure, he's doing it to show you a weakness. And you know what the most awesome part is? You take that weakness, you turn around and you confess it to God, and you go, God, I just discovered, thanks to this pressure you're putting on me, I just discovered a weakness. Now, you and me, Father, let's get it fixed. And he will. He will. He's faithful. So that's my little story. A gas pipe under a house in San Jose about 40 years ago, and it stuck with me about the pressure. All right, have a wonderful Monday. God bless you. You know I love you, and I'll see you next week.